Hello and welcome to another episode of In Goal Radio, the podcast. I'm your host, Darren Millard, and in this NHL pause and dealing with cancellations throughout the hockey world, we continue to bring you knowledge, gear insight, and general perusing and opinions from the goaltending world, joined by In Goal Magazine co-founders David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. Gentlemen, everybody's safe and sound from the lower mainland out to Vancouver Island?
Doing very well out here. It's another beautiful day in paradise. Well, not really paradise when everybody's shut in, is it? Fortunately for us, things are going pretty well, and on the in-goal front, they're also going well. We're nice to see more people joining us every day over at In-Goal Premium, and Kevin and I, with a few other projects on hiatus now for a little while, have had a little bit more time, so the content's increasing over there as well. So yeah, a lot of good things happening now.
Over here in Vancouver, I got to say, social distancing, it's easy for me to say. Social distancing reminds me pretty much of high school. I just spent a lot of time by myself.
That's a terrible joke. And we're supposed to be the ones making fun of you, not yourself.
Self-deprecation, that's where I'm at, boys. Hey, listen.
Robs us of an opportunity.
Listen, our listeners can't see my hair, but my wife cut it recently. She did a pretty good job. That's where we're at. That's where we're at in Vancouver. We're ordering barber scissors through Amazon and learning how to cut hair on YouTube, and then allowing me to be the guinea pig. Again, it's like high school.
It's awesome. And we're a couple of weeks into this, and who knows how long it's going to last. And just to want to do our part to bring you some entertainment and a little bit of an escape from the real world that we're all dealing with. And it is global, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in Asia, or here in North America. Today, we are going to deal with a lot of Russian talk, as Semyon Varlamov from the New York Islanders is going to stop by the program, as well as Oleg Romashko. Romashko. How do you say the name?
Well, I don't think there's an N in there, so it's just Romashko to me.
Well, you know what? I've made a career out of just creating names. So Romashko, you're right. It's Oleg Romashko is going to stop by, and he has a very interesting story. And I apologize for butchering the name, but he is a guy, and listening to this conversation with Kevin Woodley, who is a person that just has pure passion for the position and has traveled the world, largely spurred by his own desire to make himself better, Woody.
Yeah, no, he's a fascinating guy. I met him through Ian Clark, and as you'll hear in this story, what led him to Ian Clark was pretty much just him deciding that he wanted to learn from different people, and he wanted to learn from the best in the NHL. And so he asked a couple of Russian goaltenders who he knew, who he could come meet. And the first opportunity didn't pan out, but they suggested another one. And so he came back over to North America, hoping to meet and learn from Ian Clark the second time around, and they did. And now they've got this relationship where he's bringing, young goalies with him through his school, Plug for Goalie Masters, which is school in Russia. They do camps, I think, in Canada. Obviously, the camps here in Vancouver with Ian Clark and Columbus when Clarkie was there. They do camps in Finland still as well. And he basically just brings them over, and he gets better. He tries to get them better. It's just, you'll hear it in the interview, but just as you said, Darren, I think you put it perfectly. Just a desire to learn from more people and improve himself as a coach, and that led him over here, and has led to some fascinating stories and pretty cool timing. It actually wasn't planned, but with the Islanders being in town and Varley being here, he went into the locker room and talked to the kids and gave sort of a presentation on kind of what it takes to get to his level, and gave them a little bit of inspiration, as well as some tips on preparation. So kind of cool timing that Oleg was here in Vancouver with the kids, with the young goalies at the same time that Varlamov was here. And kind of an interesting topic, and one we'll get into with him, Russian goaltending. I mean, there's we've seen the hot spots over the years, Finland, Sweden. Russia's it, and has been for a while. You'll see Askarov as the first goalie picked this summer. You're seeing the success that Shesterkin has. Sorokin coming over next year, but is a guy we expect to come over next year with the Islanders. Who's sort of on the same trajectory for immediate success. This is sort of the number one spot that NHL teams are looking for goaltending talent. And there's some interesting theories as to why. And also, as you'll hear Oleg say, some genuine concerns that maybe things are changing there. And some of the reasons this current generation is having so much success could get coached out of them at too young an age. So some themes there that are part of the interview that I think a lot of goalies and goalie coaches all over the world will find fascinating.
Yeah, there's a real strong opinion on goalie coaching from Romashko that you'll have to listen to, because I think for a lot of us, it rings true in that delicate balance between coaching and being athletic and having instincts. And we deal with that during that conversation. Varlamov with what he does during the game, how he approaches it, how he deals with certain situations. That's also coming up. And along with this podcast, you two also have something very interesting coming up. I know that we're in this state of just suspended animation and living right now with a general time of launching equipment that everybody gets excited about and tries out and gets on the ordering bandwagon. And you guys are going to help Bauer and change the launch approach and deal with and expose a new line of equipment.
We've been talking about trying to find ways to bring the community together a little bit more. And my son has actually been doing some work with a guy who's a friend of ours and a friend of the show, Pete Fry, the goalie mindset guy. Has a group of kids he works with. And I say kids, Pee-wee all the way up to pro. Every single day, 4:15, they're meeting on a video webinar and they do a little bit of training together. It's a chance to talk, to ask questions. You might call it a bit of a mastery group or something. And it gives them that little piece of community to come together every day. Cause I think that's one thing that we're all going to be increasingly craving, is that opportunity to connect to other people. And the content is always great, but that chance to actually get together and just share an experience, I think, is really important. So Kevin and I were talking about some ways we might be able to go live, so to speak, with our audience and share some of the things we're doing and just give people a chance to come together as an in-goal community and not just listen, not just read, but maybe even interact a little bit and ask a few questions. And so just turns out that that this weekend is a fantastic time to do it, Kevin.
Yeah, Bauer ultrasonic gear is set to launch at some point this weekend. Obviously, with everything that's going on in the world right now, it was supposed to be Friday. I'm hoping that we're still able to meet that. We're finishing up our review. We're really lucky. We've had this stuff for almost 6 weeks now, which meant that before everything got shut down, we were able to get it into the hands of a lot of testers from beer league level right up to junior A and get some feedback from guys. Which is kind of what we like to, that's kind of what our reviews are all about. Make sure we have a lot of voices, a lot of different opinions, guys that play at different levels, guys
it's
that...
your lab.
Well, yeah, and guys that play different ways too, right? Like we used to do it a lot of it ourselves, where it was just our opinion. And hey, that has some, you can do that for sure, right? Because we've learned how gear performs. We've seen the science behind it. There are things that we understand and can explain, but there's nothing better than getting feedback from a guy who, say, grew up wearing, a soft, flexible pad, and then another guy who's been in a stiffer, quote unquote, butterfly pad his whole life, and seeing, sort of who likes what fits what. And so that's what we try and do. And I think, as Hutch said, we're going to try and this week, keep an eye on In Goal Mag and our social media channels for the specifics of how. But this week we're going to try and have one of these, what would you call them, a webinar where we go over the gear line, we share our gear. You'll be able to read the review. You'll be able to sort of ask us questions about some of the various features. We can hold it up to the camera. It's going to be a little bit sort of feel it out as we go in terms of presentation and backdrop and showing things on camera. Obviously, you've only got your sort of web camera on your computer. So, there'll be me holding up the glove close and closing it and things like that. We're going to try and get the guys on from Bauer, Spencer Freer, to talk a little bit about the gear, maybe walk us through the customizer. So we're finalizing that for this week, but those are in the works. And we'll continue that moving forward. We don't have the gear segment right now. The Hockey Shop and the hockeyshop.com are on hold with us just in terms of everything that's going on and having to shut the physical store. But, they've been such good supporters for so long. Make sure if you have some needs, they still are open online. You can check them out at thehockeyshop.com. But for now, we don't have a sponsor. It doesn't mean we don't have gear. We'll start with the Bauer Ultrasonic. Hutch, you were playing around with the CCM Access helmet that arrived this week. We'll be able to show off that mask in the near future as well. And just because some of these launches are going to be pushed back because of everything that's going on in the world, but some of them are going to proceed on time. And we're going to be right there to bring you all the details and all the sort of nitty gritty. And, we talked about the hockey shop suspending their Tendy Fest this year, unfortunately in late May. So a lot of people aren't going to have the chance to get on the ice like they have every other year to try it out in person. And that means it'll be even more important that we find interactive ways to sort of bring you the details of how the gear performs and whether it's going to suit your style.
I just can't wait for you guys to launch a webinar, just to see the technical elements that you guys will overcome and the challenges that you guys will overcome.
It is not going to look like the set that you sit in on every day, Darren. It's going to be very rough around the edges. I just thought, we get all sorts of questions sent to us by message about various lines of gear. What can you tell me about what's coming? And I know people enjoy the reviews that we put out, but I also know that people would love a chance to sit down and just ask a few questions. Pick Woody's brain, because he's really the master of all of this. And so why not see what happens?
It's awesome. It's a great idea.
Don't pick too deep. There's not much in there.
You might hit oil though.
Yeah,
right?
Might hit something.
might get it just that one mineral great resource of knowledge coming there from
More like an
Kevin
echo
Woodley and
chamber.
David Hutchison. Yeah, that could be that too. Looking forward to it. Make sure your screen sharing is turned off. Every now and then I do that, and you guys see exactly what I'm doing on the screen while we're recording our podcast. But let's get into the feature interview. We have a couple of Russians coming your way, and we'll start with the New York Islander netminder, first year with that organization, Semyon Varlamov, standing by with Kevin Woodley on In Goal Radio, the podcast.
Is there any phrase that you've had over the course of your career that's a way to sort of ground yourself or root, whether it's just confidence or like something, a key that you think about during a game? Does it change, or has there ever been anything? If Pekkarinen told me he has one, but it's in Finnish and he wouldn't explain it to me. Do you use that at all?
Listen, my first language is Russian. Of course, the self-talk going on, always. I think every goalie in the world, they have a self-talk. Even before the game, during the game, it's always happening. That's how you try to get yourself ready. That's how you try to recover from the bad goal. That's how you try to stay focused during the game. There's always self-talk going on, always.
Does it change, or do you have are there principles that's hey, this is the root, the source of my game to be in this position, or something in my stance that's always sort of a staple, or does it always evolve?
Listen, we all have routines before the games and during the games, and it's not just a warm-up. It's mental preparation. When I'm talking about the mental preparation, I mean the self-talk with yourself before the game, during the game. Everybody's different. I have a lot of things going on before the game, during the game, just try to get yourself ready mentally before the game. And then during the game, you have a game plan, a mental game plan. And then you have to kind of follow the game plan.
Can you give me and I understand if you can't, but speaking to goalies and other goalies, can you give me one example of one little thing that you might hey, after a face-off, I reset to this or something like that?
I just try to prepare myself to play the 60 minutes. No matter what's going on out there, no matter who you play, no matter who you play against, I just my mindset is always the same. I go out the way, I try to outplay the other goalie. I play 60 minutes. Doesn't matter. I give up a goal in the first minute or first couple of seconds, or I give up 3-5 goals in the two first periods. My mindset is the same. Play hard. Give this team the chance to win. See what happens. So I try to just go out there and play the whole game, and I see what happens after. That's in my mind.
Just kind of nice, simple messages. You're not getting complex in terms of technical or anything like that. It's just that sort of simple, basic philosophy.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I want to ask you a little bit about Russian roots and the evolution of the development over there. Obviously, Oleg, and a lot was made of, Ilya coming over.
Coming over?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either.
So Just, I guess my question would be like, what was your experience growing up in terms of when you had your first goalie coach and things like that? And how, if you go back in the summers, how have you seen that evolve? Because I think there's a perception out there that a lot of guys maybe coming over were maybe had a little less coaching at a younger age, but now there's a lot more coaching over there. What do you know of it? What was your experience?
Listen, I always been lucky with the coaching situation. My first head coach, he gave me a lot of skills to become a goalie. He gave me basic stuff, and then I really appreciate what he's done to me. I started playing hockey when I was 8, and then I was lucky to have this this guy on my side. I mean, in the beginning, everything was kind of the old school, like Tretiak style, because Tretiak, he was a very famous person, and then like the best goalie all the time in Russia and then probably in the world. So everybody started like kind of learn from him a lot of stuff. So I mean, I did the same thing with my first coach. He gave me a lot of basic stuff, and then my second coach, like he was very talented too. He gave me a lot of things to learn as a young man. I'm talking about the style and stuff. Like we'll learn how to play butterfly and all these things.
Do you remember what age, like roughly what age? And then we're still talking Russia, right? Like as opposed
we're still talking about Russia. And then when I came here, I worked with a lot of different goalie coaches, and then I always been a good learner. I believe you can learn at the age 8, and then you can continue to learn at the age 40. It doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. There's always room to grow. There's always room for you to learn something new. And then, this league is always changing. This league is always, it become like faster, better, like more skilled players, and then you have to adjust your game, and then you have to become a better goalie. You have to just keep working on yourself and try to get better like every year.
It's constant evolution, eh?
Always. If you stop working on yourself, you start growing, like you're done. You're out of this league.
You mentioned, it's funny because you mentioned the Tretiak stuff. Same with Alexander Georgiev told me the same thing. A lot of skating when he was younger. I think sometimes over here, kids are into, you mentioned that second stage for you was sort of butterfly and those type of mechanics. A lot of times over here, we're seeing that taught at like 7, 8 years old. They go straight into that technical stuff. Do you think there's something to the fact that there was that focus on, like you said, a little more old school, a lot of skating, a lot of movement earlier in your career rather than going straight into maybe some of that butterfly technique type stuff?
Well, listen, when I started playing goal as a goalie, we already know what's the butterfly. We already knew that who created the butterfly? Patrick Roy with the Francois Allaire in Montreal. They were the first, and it happened in late 80s, I believe. They started working together, and then Patrick become right away like one of the best goalies in the NHL. We all know what happened to him. He's like won the 4 Stanley Cups, and he's like one of the best goalies all the time.
And Francois Allaire, I would argue, changed the position.
He's been amazing always. Like I worked with Frankie 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a great teacher to me. I learned so many things from him, different like things, how to play butterfly. I mean, all the goalie coaches I work with, I just pick the best out of them, and then just try to build. I was trying to like just kind of take everything I can from them, and then that's how I become better, I think.
When you go back in the summer, do you see, like, can you compare what these kids are seeing, Varley, to what you had in terms of at an early age and the structure and stuff? Do you see differences there?
Like now?
Yeah. How much you get a chance to, work with kids?
100%. I mean, goalies become better. We see more talented goalies coming from Russia and playing NHL,
Did you take some pride in that? As being one of the guys that was over early and ahead of this?
I just think like the goalie coach situation that become much better. Like we have, I'd say, more goalie coaches who wants to learn, and then wants to learn not just around Russia, who wants to come here in North America, like the guys like Oleg Romashko, and then learn from the best goalies, from the best goalie coaches, And then I think Oleg was he's the first who started doing that kind of thing. Come here and then learn from Ian Clark, and then he brings like all the new skills like back home, and then teaching all these goalies. And then I mean, a lot of goalies right now, like very talented goalies. I think we're gonna see more. I think Russian goalies play in NHL in the future because of that.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say too, Parkilla. I got a chance to talk to him. He was a guy you got to work with too. So you would have had influences from Russia. You had influences when you came over from North America, but also UC as a guy who comes from the Finnish route. So again, when you talk about taking things from every different element, where like what did you take for like what did you like about working with UC and the strengths you took from him?
I mean, a lot of good stuff. UC, he changed my career. Like when I was 19, I was kind of. I remember that year I was struggling. Like we were not doing good, like as a team. And then I thought, like, what's going on? And then like the all locomotive, they hired UC, and then UC came in, and then we started learning. I started learning new things, and I started believing in what I'm doing with him. And then like month later, 2 months later, we put a lot of work together, and then like it worked out for me. It worked out for a lot of goalies who work with him. I know he worked with Tukarask, like with a lot of Finnish guys back home. He's an incredible goalie coach, and then he's doing a great job right now for Colorado Avalanche. I mean, these guys, they very technical. They teach you a lot of technique, like on a daily basis, like over and over. You kind of doing the same movements over and over till you just go on the ice and play, and then you don't think about it like anymore. You just go and play, and then everything looks perfect. So that's how they work.
Do you remember what it was with UC that year? Like, what was there one or two things? It's like, hey, this really clicked for me. Because again, I'm sorry, but you're speaking to other goalies, so they're I know they're going to be curious. What was it?
The puck control, play without rebound. Like I remember we were doing a lot of skating, a lot of position plays. He was teaching me how to read the game better, how to play ahead of the game, like things like that.
And what's changed this year? Another new voice. We talked about. Remember when you were in Colorado? You talked about recovering to the posts. That was a big step for you there in terms of becoming a default in Colorado. What about now? You've got Mitch, you've got Piero, more voices. Sometimes it's not easy to add voices. How have you integrated to their philosophies and some of the things that they want?
I mean, when you're changing the goalie coaches in the beginning, it's not easy. The transition is not easy because you learn you work with the one goalie coach. He expects to play this way, and then over the summer you start working with the other goalie coaches, and then they expect you to play that way. But they don't try to change like entire style. They just try to help you to play your best, and then they just try to add something to your game for you to improve your game, things like that. So we've been working a lot on positioning. I think positioning is very important when you play in NHL. You always have to be in front of the puck. You have to always try to be like ahead of the game. So we learn like a lot of things. I mean, if you're gonna start talk about it, it's gonna be an hour. It's just there's tons of things, but the position is the most important thing.
What do you think when you see that all these kids coming over to want to learn like that?
Listen, it's amazing. These guys, they have opportunity to come here and then learn from the best, goalie coaches. Like they have opportunity to come in Vancouver and then work with the guys like Oleg and then Il Clark. I mean, I when I was younger, I didn't have this kind of opportunity, so they better appreciate that. The parents, they're doing a great job. They pay for everything. They come here and then they have this opportunity, so they have to be very thankful for that. And then they better learn everything they say, because I know it's going to help them in the future.
Hey, last one, number one. You wore it in Colorado. You wore it at the end in Washington. Was there any desire to wear number one here?
No, I mean...
Didn't ask? Because I talked to Greiser and he would have been like, no big deal.
Not a big deal for me. Like Greiser, he's playing number one. I took number 40 back. I started my career with number 40, so I play with 40. Like, for me, number is, like, not a big deal.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's a couple of parts of that interview, Woody, and I don't know whether Hutch jump in here because I thought it was interesting when he started talking about all the different ways that he deals with in-game situations and this mental approach in various forms of what he thinks about and how he handles a good goal or an early goal or trying to beat the other goalie at the other end.
You know, it's interesting, and this was actually one of our last one-on-one interviews in the NHL. The next day was when they shut it down. Actually, the Canucks room had already been shut down and everything was at a podium that day, but the Islanders were still bringing guys out to do one-on-one interviews. I was the only guy that wanted to talk to Varlamov. And so one of the reasons that we dug so much into that sort of self-talk and how you get yourself through that game, Darren, is because I was doing a column on it, in all honesty, full transparency, I was doing a column on it starting with NHL.com, and then we've continued that column with some extra tidbits at In Goal Magazine Premium, where there are elements that, it's a broader brush, broader audience at NHL, so we don't publish all the in-depth answers that we get, and so the extended ones go to In Goal Premium. So that's why I was pressing so much on that, but I agree with you. I thought that was fascinating. The other part was just, listening to him talk to all the different voices he's had over the years, and how many of those voices are NHL goalie coaches? Even a guy like UC Parkilla, who wasn't in the NHL when Varley first started working with him over in Russia, but actually played a role in UC getting that job in Colorado. And now a guy who, the first European goalie coach to get a chance to come over and work in the NHL and has had a lot of success in Colorado. And a guy we hope to have on the podcast soon as you see some of these restrictions. He's a guy that I'm allowed to talk to from the Colorado Avalanche, but doesn't generally do interviews, but he's fantastic to talk to. So anytime we sort of get that, it's interesting to hear guys, they all work with different gurus and some of them, more closely with one than the other. But that advice it sort of stays consistent throughout, right? Like tools in the toolbox. You're not everything you're taught. And I think this applies to something we published on In Goal Premium this week. Paddle Down on Wraparounds with James Reimer, Roberto Luongo in Florida, Robbie Tallis showing us the why, the whens, the hows. Part 2 of that coming out this week. It's not for everyone, but the key is you try it. You try these different things. You try to learn from different guys like Oleg does, and you keep what you like and you discard what you don't. But the whole key is to sort of continuously be an active learner and seek out new ideas, new opinions, so you're constantly developing.
Varlamov and that discussion about in-game scenarios and the mental side of it reminded me, Hutch, of that discussion that we had at the draft last year with Martin Brodeur and how he dealt with moments during the game where he wasn't getting a lot of action and he put his mask up and he just stare off into the stands as his mental timeout.
I think it's a topic that's becoming increasingly more important, and we've said for how many years that goaltending is 70%, 80%, 90% mental. Pick a number, and now we're seeing people dial it in now and try and get to the heart of the matter. And so it's actually something kids can be working on. Well, as we talked about just a little bit earlier, it's something you actually can be working on now as we're not on the ice, is looking at some of those parts of your game so that you're ready when you do step on the ice. And yeah, having some routines are good. Did you have a routine, Darren?
Skate to the bench and stay there.
Yeah.
That generally was my routine. No, it was an area that I really struggled with.
Yeah. Woody skates to the bench and grabs a different stick.
Right. You know what I used to do was one of my when you think of it now it was a real detriment was if I got scored on early, I'd start doing math. Like I'm on pace to for a goals against average of 23 in this game. If I let in 2 in the first, like that kind of thing, and you never really learned the tools to be mentally stronger and be able to push that out. And you're so dialed in for the entire game that it was tough to maintain. And now you're hearing that that's not necessarily how you need to approach it.
Hey, listen, you're not alone, Darren. I've talked to guys in the NHL that have had to find ways to stop doing math in their head. They think about save percentage during a game. Geez, I got to stop the next 10 or I'm going to be below 900. I'm not kidding. There are still
That's
guys.
Fascinating.
There are still guys that struggle with that a little bit. And sometimes it's guys that will obsess over their stats over the course of a season. They'll get a little too focused. Remember Nick Habibulin telling me that after moving to Edmonton, where his stats took a beating because the team wasn't great, he had to really actively, consciously, sort of find ways to not pay attention to those things because they weren't necessarily a reflection of how he was playing, but that's how he'd always sort of assessed his own game and sort of his self-value was through some of those statistics. So there are guys right up to the NHL now that still struggle with those types of problems. It was interesting in doing the story, and you can read parts of it at NHL.com and a deeper look at at In Goal Premium. But for some guys, it's simply, how do I reset after a goal? And there can be mantras that they go to. You got Holtby and Carter Hart squirting the water bottle and picking a drop to follow. That's a refocus. For other guys, it really is like self-confidence, like trying to build themselves back up despite, Antti Ranta telling me that he has told himself the same thing for 7, 8, 9 years in the NHL. And they're basically different sort of reinforcements that, hey, you've done this before. You're good enough. You're good enough to make these saves. You don't suck, basically. A more positive reinforcement if you don't suck. And then Devin Dubnyk, who we got into a little bit more in depth at In Goal Premium, where he's actually, dialing in on certain technical and tactical elements that he finds are staples of his game and knows when they wander. So is his ability to perform. You asked what yours is personally. I got 3. The sort of mantra that I say to myself is posture, position, pucks. And posture is sort of a biomechanical setup that I know, a stance and a setup that I know is going to allow me to move in a way that gives me access to pucks, that makes me feel efficient. Position is making sure I don't retreat too much and give too much away by being passive. And pucks is just watch the puck and compete. And so, different guys have different phrases, different sayings. That happens to be mine because it's easy to remember. And it's amazing when things start to slip and you start thinking about, how many goals you've given up, or God, I blew this lead. We're up 3-1 and now it's 3-3, versus just going back to something that's your foundation. Like in my case, again, low level.
Well, that sounds really similar to Mika Kiprasov and what he used to do with the reset.
5 R's.
Right. Do you remember what they are?
Might be time for an article to get published on this, boys.
How fast can I Google while talking?
5 R's. Yes. No,
can I still spell Kiprasov properly?
Kiprasov was the first one that I realized had a real routine that you could see happen after a goal, where the mask would come up and you could see him going through it. Ron Hextall had a routine, but it was slightly more violent and harder on sticks. But there is that scenario where Kiprasov really went through it. I don't know whether you want to call it step by step, but there was a significant process to it.
Well, and I'm trying to find it because I'm pretty sure we published it at Angle, and the credit goes to David Marcoux, who was the goalie coach of the Calgary Flames at the time. Later worked with the Carolina Hurricanes and still does some coaching. Obviously, has Marcoux goalie schools in Alberta. Calgary. Calgary. I couldn't remember if it was Calgary or Edmonton. And I remember him going over this with us, and I'm pretty sure we published an article on it. But the 5 R's are release, relax, review, regroup, and refocus. And so I remember talking to Mika Kiprasov about this, about just the sort of, again, that active technique that allows you to let go. It's all about staying in the moment, right? And let go of that past goal, reflect on it for a period of time, but then move along quickly, because if you're still thinking about the last one that went in, chances are the next one might too.
Hutch, we went down a rabbit hole.
We did. We could have a whole episode on this, couldn't we? Maybe time to bring Pete in. I was thinking, 2 things as you were talking there, and one is there's no substitute for experience, and that experience needs to. I've often said that in an ideal world, you would raise a goaltender much the way you bring a boxer along in their career. Where they try and find them something just a little bit above their level each time to increase that confidence, increase that ability. If a goaltender jumps in too fast, it's hard to pull that confidence back. You can have all the techniques that you want for resetting, but they need to have some foundation in some success so that there's some real belief. It doesn't matter how many water bottles you squirt into the air and how many skates into the corner you take, and unless you can fall back and know that you've done this before, as Antti Ranta talked about, they're not going to work. So you really need that experience. It's incredibly important. The other thing I was thinking about and all that was, it's interesting, Kevin, that you mentioned guys doing the stats in their head, because I think we've now come to a point where the stats are also a benefit to guys, because in the day, it used to be, you were worried about goals against average and save percentage, but now having some of this more advanced statistics give you an opportunity to actually step back from the game and say, okay, is it as bad as I thought it is, or did I actually do reasonably well here? Now you can look at them goal by goal, and maybe we know a 900 is not a 900 depending on the shot quality, the situation, and so on. And so that ability to be able to analyze things a little bit more and look at process over results, I think is a big step that we've taken in the game that help kids with their mental approach. Kids, I say kids, all goaltenders really.
Well, that's one of the biggest things that I hear from NHL goaltenders. I've written that story a couple times at the NHL, and it's kind of a reoccurring theme because people struggle to believe it. But one of the biggest challenges, even at that level, is not always looking to change just because the results get poor. And usually it requires your goalie coach going through the goals and going through video and be like, listen, like sometimes you're going to get a run of bounces like this. Like, so let's look at it. What would you have done differently here? And quite often as these guys go back through that process, it's like, well, honestly, not really anything. So yeah, okay, we gave up 3 and yeah, maybe we might have tried this differently here, but at the end of the day, sometimes pucks go in. They find their ways in crazy ways. It's an odd-shaped object. And if you get obsessed with the results and you can't separate the process, you can quickly try and look for changes that aren't even necessary. And, again, right up to the NHL level, some of the best guys in the world, Vezina Trophy winners and All-Stars have told me the same thing, that that can be one of the hardest parts of this process is trusting your process when it's not leading to results that everyone else can see or measure.
Just one more on the Varlamov conversation, and it's not an opinion that I hear a lot of, but it was certainly the way I approached it, and I was interested to hear him say it, was that he plays the other guy, the other goaltender, and not the game, and that's not sort of the norm in the National Hockey League. You usually hears, I don't care what that guy does, I focus on exactly what's going on in my end. But I thought that was interesting, Woody.
Well, I got to be honest. When I heard it again on the replay, I kind of kicking myself in the ass, saying, "Good interviewer, buddy." Because I frankly, I wanted to follow it up, and I wish I'd followed it up because it was so odd to hear that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure a lot of goalie coaches or sports psychs would recommend it. I think most probably wouldn't. So
why not?
Well, because again, you can't control what they're doing. I mean, it's like watching that guy. How many times you talked about a goalie where they struggle with maintaining their focus when they're not busy, and it's hardest. Your team's peppering the other guy. He's making 30 saves. You're watching him, and you're focused on what he's doing. And if your mindset is, man, he's playing so well, I better stop the next one. I'm not busy at all. Like that's not what you want, right? You can't be thinking about what the other guy's doing. At least that's the way we're taught from a sports psych mentality and from most goalie coaches that I've talked to about it. So again, I was surprised to hear it. I was kicking myself after hearing it that I didn't follow up. But don't forget, again, one-on-one situation, just sort of chatting outside the locker room, one-on-one. Sometimes guys, I'm curious how deeply that is part of his philosophy versus just a comment he makes to me. So next time I have an opportunity to follow it up, we will for sure.
Yeah, cut yourself some slack, okay?
I suck. And this is how I talk to myself in the crease too. I need like a quick 3, easy to follow 3 keyword reset while I'm doing interview.
All right, we're gonna bring Pete. We're gonna bring Pete on, and he can create a reset routine for interviews.
Oh my
There's
goodness,
his challenge.
Pete, he would have a field day with the 3 of us. I was doing the same thing when we started the podcast when I got Oleg's last name mixed up, but Romashko, right? I jest because I can. Romashko, Oleg Romashko is part of our second feature interview on this edition as we travel down the Russian road. And I'm not going to give too much away in the intro, but one thing that does stick out in this is the ability to feel the game as a netminder. Here's Kevin once again with Oleg Romashko.
All right, so part 2 of this week's interview, we're gonna talk with Oleg Romashko. Now, you heard Semyon Varlamov talk about him, good friend of his, in the interview that we ran just before. Let's start with this trip. You're bringing young Russian goaltenders over. chance to work with Ian Clark, chance to get on the ice with these guys, chance to have Semyon come and speak with them. How long have you been doing this with Clarky? How many years, going back to the Columbus days, and walk me through sort of the whole goal and the whole idea behind this trip.
Yeah, I've been doing this kind of camps with Clarky. I don't know, is this 7th year so far? And everything going good. It's I think it's whole idea about for those goalies who come over here about dream. You have, in my opinion, you have to see the dream. What you want to achieve in your career. That's why I create this kind of project to bring guys over here. First of all in Columbus, now it's Vancouver.
And just to give a plug, it's Goalie Masters is the name of the school.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And so you've been bringing them over. So when you went to Columbus, they would have also had a chance to meet and see Sergei Bobrovsky work. I know they had a chance to have Varley come in the room the other night. What do you think that means to young Russia? I mean, there's so many Russian goaltenders in the league right now. Some up and coming prospects as well. Has that sparked back home an increase in the number of people that want to play the position?
Yeah, I think so. It's good for Russian goalies because now it's Shesterkin showed up in Rangers. So many Russian goalies keep coming into NHL. That's good for other Russian goalies, like young goalies. It's a kind of good example. If how to get I know in the NHL. If you see the guys like Bobrovsky, Varlamov, Shesterkin, all these guys as an example, I think it's good for them.
And when you talk about coming over and seeing the dreams, it's not only getting to see those goaltenders, but getting to see how hard they work. I mean, I don't know that there's many guys that work harder than Bob. Do you think that opens some young eyes in terms of what it takes?
Yeah, that's the main idea. Yeah. First of all, practice, how they practice, how they do on practice, then how it works in the games, how it helps in the game. Yeah. After that, they started understand a little bit faster about goalie development, how it should be looks like.
Now, walk me through the relationship with Ian. How long have you known Ian, and where did this all start?
It's my 9th year so far with Ian. The story, the simple story. Before the Columbus, I've been learning in Finland 6 years. Yeah, with some Finn guy. And after that, I said to myself, I stopped to develop. I need more. I took already everything from the Finn guy, and I have to go like further.
Kind of like goalies learn new things, put tools in the toolbox. You're just looking to add new.
Yeah. And I called Varley and said, well, I have some idea to come over and learn more from your goalie coach, Francois Allaire. He said, okay, come over. And I came to Denver, but he wasn't there. He was gone, Allaire. And we talked with Varley, and he said, hey, you should call Sergei. He has a really, really good goalie coach, Ian Clark. Talk with him. And I called back to Sergei and said, hey, Sergei, I have some idea. Can you talk with Ian? Is it possible if I come down and learn something from him? If it's going to be just 3 hours, don't worry, I will come for just 3 hours. Yeah, it's not a problem. Just ask.
7 years later.
Yeah. And he called me back and he said, Ian said, come over. It's not a problem. We'll see. And I came over to Columbus and started working with him. He started learning and teach me. I started learning from him. He started teaching me a lot of good stuff. And I said, can I come again? He said, we'll see. Yeah, I'm called back to him and said, can I come? He said, sure. And I started coming like 3 times a year for learning from Ian Clark. And now we are friends, like good friends. And he keep teaching me, and I keep learning from him a lot. First of all, as a person, he's a really good person, number one. And second one is a really good goalie coach. Yeah.
So what's goalie development look like back home for you right now? Is it, I mean, you obviously have a goalie school. How much goalie coaching is available to kids, through minor hockey, the equivalent of minor hockey, like just their teams when they're young? How much of it is private goalie schools like yourselves? What's the model look like back home that's allowing for all the success we're seeing right now, in your mind?
Yeah, back in Russia, we have a lot of right now. It's a lot of different goalie schools, a lot of young coaches. Yeah, each kid's school in Russia, they have one or two goalie coaches for whole ages. For whole school. Then MHL, goalie coach, VHL is pro league, and KHL, of course, they have goalie coaches as well. Yeah, but it's different. Some goalie coaches try to teach some Swedish program. Some mix, some from YouTube, a lot of them from YouTube. Yeah, those guys think that it's enough. Just give some drills and that's it. No details, nothing. That's the problem over there. Yeah.
Right, and details are huge from Clarky.
Yeah, everything in details. Yeah.
So I'd heard the MHL at one point a few years ago. You mentioned the Swedish influence. Actually bought and had the Swedish manual translated. Do you know if that's
no?
Okay, I'd heard that.
Yeah.
What do you think? When I talked to some of the guys like Varley when he was younger. Georgiev, obviously, when he was younger, they talked about the training when they were little being almost old school in terms of the style. A lot of like dating back to Tretiak stuff. But there's still value there because they seem to learn like skating and fundamentals of movement. Like, do you see a lot of value in the way that's sort of taught at a young age? Or are we seeing now, like you said, more schools? Is it more technical at a young age? Where's it at? Because when these players are arriving and growing up, the skill level, the foundation seem to be off the charts.
Yeah, like back in the old days, yeah, we don't have goalie coaches. Yeah. Now, my opinion, that's the biggest problem right now because too much technique. They're teaching too much technique. That's it, and plus size, and they think that's a good idea to develop of the goalies.
But the reason some of these guys have had success is they didn't go too much technique when they were younger.
Yeah, my opinion, technique is just 30% of goalie. Otherwise, compete, eyes, hands, reactivity, a lot of different things, reading game. Yeah, but they try to teach just technique, like robotics, That's the problem in Sweden. A lot of techniques.
And you're seeing it become in Russia. I had this conversation. I'm trying to think of who was telling me recently, same kind of thing where Hudobin, Anton, right?
Yeah.
Didn't have a goalie coach till he was 18 or 19. And then he met Nabby, and Nabby was his goalie.
Yeah.
And a lot of old school stuff.
Yeah.
But again, skill-based. And he feels like when he goes home, at a very young age, they're all trying to be Sergei Bobrovsky. They're all trying to be Semyon Varlamov. Are you seeing that as a problem? We're getting away from the skills at a young age?
Yeah, like 2-3 years ago, it was, it's fun for me. A lot of goalies try to copy of Bobrovsky. I told them it's just only one Bobrovsky in this world. You're never going to be Bobrovsky. It's just one Bobrovsky in the world. Stop copy and take your time for your own development. Don't spend don't waste the time on try to be copy. Just spend maximum time on your own development, on your own create, on your own system. Yeah, a lot of copies. Yeah, in Russia.
Do you think does the KHL deserve some credit? I mean, they put in some rules to make sure that one of the goalies was from Russia. Do you think has that played a role in development as opposed to just going out and finding goalies from around the world and bringing them in, making sure that you've got homegrown goalies in the KHL? Do you think that's played a role in development as well, giving opportunities or?
No, not really. We have in KHL we have a lot of important goalies.
But there still has to be one of each, right? Like you can't just have import goalies, or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you can't. No, they took away this kind of rule.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have like 2 important goalies. Yeah, but it's how to say, you can it's allowed just 5 guys, important guys in the game. That's why if you have like 2 important goalies and 1 goalie is just backup doing nothing, it means you cut 1 spot in forwards or defense. That's why it doesn't work in KHL like that. 1 important goalie, usually it's a starting goalie because he gets a lot of money.
But it probably helps then that there's still development time and there's a spot for somebody who's homegrown.
Yeah. Other guys they're Russians. Yeah, goalies. Yeah. Now I don't know. Maybe few teams have a import goalie.
We've seen in past years, Henrik Lundqvist has success, and there's a boom in Swedish goaltending. Mika Kiprusoff with the Calgary Flames and a boom in Finnish goaltending. Although in both cases there were programs there for goalies. Who's the guy right now in Russia? I'd heard it was Sergei, but with so many good young goalies, like do kids still want to be Bob, or are we seeing guys watching Igor and the success he's had in New York? Samsonov with early success in Washington. Like, who's the guy that every kid wants to be right now? Is it still Bob?
Now it's hard to say because
so many.
As we know, Bob unfortunately doing not good right now. I hope he can get back to his like good condition. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, because I like Sergey. He's a hardworking guy, very talented. I hope he's gonna find his game back. Yeah. Yeah, it's right now. It's someone wants to Bob, someone wants to be Varley. It's depend of like who's your favorite goalie. Yeah, but a lot of guys just dream it about the NHL. Yeah, because if somebody can do it, it means I can do it too. I need just put hard work in, and the results will come, like we know. Yeah, and talented, of course. And plus size. Yeah.
Never heard.
What do you think about size? Is it so important here?
Well, obviously it's really important in terms of what NHL teams think and how they evaluate. I think it's been overdone. Personally, I think that there's probably a perfect size, maybe 6'3".
6'3", yeah.
And that anytime you go outside of that frame, whether it's bigger or smaller, you have to overcome size. Bigger have to overcome movement and opening holes. Smaller guys have to overcome coverage. The difference is the bigger guy's going to get chance after chance after chance, and the smaller guy's not. Is that the same back home?
Yeah. But like, for example, in KHL, they don't care about size. If you stop the pucks, you're a good goalie. You're going to play every game.
You're going to get an opportunity.
Yeah, you're going to get an opportunity. It doesn't matter about size. Yeah, of course, it's better if you goalie like 6'6" or 6'3", 6'2". That is good. But like,
do you think 6'6", 6'7" is too big sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's 6'7". It's like Bishop. Yeah, I think it's too big. Yeah.
So same idea, right? Like, there's extremes on either side.
Yeah, for smaller goals, you have to be great reader, and you have to be good with your engine, your legs, and plus good positional. That's what 3 main things for the smaller goaler.
You just described Alexander Georgiev.
Yeah, What about Saras? He's my size. Yeah, 5'11". Yeah, but he's good. But he can play because he's a good reader, good reaction, good hands, good engine, and plus he's good on position.
Good skater.
Yeah, good skater. That's what I mean. Like engine.
Yeah.
Engine. I call engine your leg. Goal is legs. Yeah.
And how much of that, like, so when you're working with young kids, and it's interesting to hear this from you,
Yeah.
because I think as a goalie coach over there, it might be really, like you can sell technique, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
come to my school, I'll teach you how to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like
yeah,
Bob,
yeah.
but you don't say that.
No.
How much of sort of that old school skating stuff is still reflected in your coaching, especially for little kids at a young age?
Yeah, like I said, back in Russia, like I said, I missed old school a little bit. You know why? Because too much butterfly right now. Too much. Yes, too much butterfly. Everybody, I call it butterfly goalie, who just drop down and expect that butterfly going to stop all pucks. But it's not going to happen. You have to do more than butterfly. Yeah, use your hands, react from your feet, all this thing. Yeah.
So I was gonna say, who are some of the guys that you've worked with that like do you coming up, the guys like Shesterkin and Sorokin, you have a chance to watch them over there a lot? Do you get to know them at all? Have you worked with some of them?
Yeah, I work with Ilya Sorokin. Yeah, and like year ago, I analyze. I did analyze games analyze for him. We do video conference with him. Like,
Should New York Islanders fans be really excited?
yeah, I think so. 2 Russian goalies. I told Warley. Yeah, next year 2 Russian goalies. That'd be great.
What do you like about his game? What do you think are for fans of the Islanders and just of goaltending in general? What are they going to see from Sorokin? Because I look at Samsonov and Shesterkin,
Yeah.
and they're both having success. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Igor's having crazy success.
Oh yeah,
But
At the
very,
start.
very different goaltenders.
Yeah.
I mean, Samsonov last year, a little rough in his movements,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
very
yeah.
refined and polished. And Igor is. Where does Sorokin fit in that scale?
I think it's not going to be a problem for Sorokin. You know why? Because he has a big potential. Yeah. My opinion, same as Sergey, but I think it's over. But it's more
More.
potential, more talented. Yeah.
Is it the end? What is it? Is it the
Everything.
engine? Is it the
Everything,
hands?
Like everything. He's got everything. Like good eyes, good hands, good engine, patient feet. That's the important too. Yeah. I think he's gonna have success in NHL. Maybe not at the start like Shesterkin, but we'll see.
Well, he did take some time to get
Yeah,
used to the
of course.
game. Even Shesterkin spent time in the AHL.
Yeah, you have to get
different
used. Yeah,
rink.
different life, different country, different system, different hockey. Yeah,
Okay.
you need to get used to it. I think it shouldn't be a problem for him.
Okay, last one because I don't want you to miss your flight back home. Number 1 goalie in the draft this year, Askarov. What? Any experience with him? Do you know him much? You get to watch him much?
Not that much.
All
but
I know is he catches with the wrong hand.
Yeah, like me. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Not casting, no shade.
About Askarov, yeah, he's a good goalie, a very talented goalie. But remember the last World Junior Championship?
Right.
Too early. That's my opinion. As a starter goalie, it's too early for him. But next year, maybe year after, he's going to be better and better. But he's very talented.
Give me one name that's not on everybody's radar. One guy that, we're all looking at because everybody looks at the same guys, right? The 3 that we've named. Just give me a name in Russia that you think that nobody's talking about that could come over here and play.
Come over.
And have and maybe a little transition. I mean, we look at a guy like Pavel Francouz. I know
Yeah.
he's not Russian, but he played in the KHL.
Yeah.
1 year in the AHL, and now he's like a 930 guy over here. Is there a name over there that you look at and you think this guy could
If
come
we're
over?
talking about KHL or just
Either one.
any Russian.
I'm putting you on the spot here. Anyone.
I expect, Ivan Prosvetov.
Arizona
Yeah.
Coyotes
Nobody
prospect.
talk about him,
Yep.
especially in Russia. Nothing. Zero. But I expect to him that he's going to play in the NHL. Very talented goalie, tall. He's like a Pecorino, but more clear. Clearer, like
Yep.
more
Cleaner.
Cleaner. This
Cleaner.
right. Yeah,
There's the
sorry.
word, yeah.
Cleaner. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I work with him. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Hey, listen, I don't want to cause you to miss your flight,
Yeah.
so we're going to cut this off right now. We got almost 20 minutes of gold between you and Varley. This is like a half-hour episode already.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a great trip back, and good on you for bringing the kids and getting to see this. It's a pretty cool initiative.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Oleg Romashko. There's a guy that has some interesting opinions, and the best part of it was he Woody still believes that there's a strong part of the game for feel, not just fundamentals and positioning.
Well, I'm not surprised, given the fact that he's developed a relationship with Ian Clark, who I think has a reputation, or at least used to have a reputation, as being so technique focused and got branded as a technical goalie coach. And certainly technique is a big part of what he does. But it's interesting to me, and we've had him on the podcast, two-parter with Clark. We heard it from Andrew Raycroft, right? Talked about all the work he did with Ian Clark, and he made a save. And,
right,
people were surprised to hear that save was not based on technique. It was based on other elements of athleticism and things like that. And, talking to Ian Clark about his young son, who's his youngest son, who's a goalie now, I think in the 9-10-year-old range, and how he just wants him to go out there and compete. He's not dialing in technique. He's not worried about that part of the game yet. So not surprised to hear that, despite what other people may think. I'm not surprised to hear that a guy working that closely with Ian feels that way.
How much do you talk about technique when it comes to saves with your son, Hutch? Because we get so focused on goals and breaking down what we may have done right or wrong in the situation where a puck gets in. But do you discuss save selection when the puck stays out?
Not in that sense. In what I like to do is we don't nitpick it at much in games, to be honest, because I also believe that you have to give kids an opportunity to explore, to develop that feel. I believe that both can be done. I don't want to see. We're a sport that really lives in pendulums. Something happens, so everybody runs to one side, and then we get a new opinion, and suddenly everybody runs to the other side. And I think there's room for middle ground here. And I think we can teach some good basic technique, but then I think we have to give young goaltenders an opportunity just to take that and explore it on their own and see how they apply it and see what it does for them. And another theme from today's podcast, have as many different tools as possible in the toolkit, and then try them out. And yeah, there'll be the odd thing and the odd time when we'll want to dial in on something, but for the most part, we want to give lots of opportunities just to try things. There can be some sort of basics that we would like to focus on at any one time, in terms of positioning, in terms of movement, in terms of beating a pass on your feet. These sort of things we can look at, but we don't really nitpick about a particular save selection. What I like to do, if I gave my little tip of the day here for goalie coaches or coaches who aren't goalie coaches, I like to pick out one thing that they do that maybe nobody else would see. It's sort of my highlight of the game, but it was something that's relatively small. So it's not about, oh, that was awesome when you dove over there and caught that puck on the backdoor chance. I mean, of course, we all love to high five and celebrate those things, or elbow tap these days. But I like to pick out a little highlight, like that was just incredible on that pass to the back door where you beat that on your feet and you were set and ready. And maybe the shot missed the net. Who knows? But it's an old teacher's trick, right? Catch them being good, and they'll keep doing it over and over again. Focus on the bad, and you're not really going to get a lot of support. So there you go.
It's funny. I asked that question because we've all screwed up plays so badly and still found a way to make a save, or we just don't play the situation properly and we still make the save, and we don't necessarily reflect on that. But if we make the wrong choice and the puck goes in, it becomes a talking point.
No, but we'll actually do the opposite. So sometimes after a game, gosh, even in between periods, Maddie or his partner, something like that has happened, and we have a little chuckle, and we'll say, oh, I bet you the head coach looked at that and said that was an unbelievable save, but the three of us got real lucky there. It's a nice way of sort of reinforcing the right thing at the same time, learning that it's okay, just let it go. And it's also another reason I don't focus too much on goals, because if we're going to teach kids they have to learn to let it go, well, we better let it go.
I watched the other night one of those classic games, and I'll bring it up because it kind of fits into this conversation. It was a playoff game between Martin Brodeur and Dominic Hasek.
Oh gosh,
and,
yes.
Hasek had the shutout in it, and it
70
was
saves.
two totally different styles, but guys making saves and coming up with second effort stops, but coming at the game from the past and one from somewhere, not even the future, like just a left turn. And it was fascinating to watch from those. And I'm curious to see how some of that style, whether that seeps into our thinking and as a reminder of different ways that you can make saves. Woody.
Well, I mean, one part here is we've already talked about this here with Robin Lehner, with Craig Anderson in past interviews on the podcast when the season was still going on. And one of the elements that would have been a part of that, watching Marty, is that patience in making saves without defaulting down, and where that patience comes from, and how we're seeing an increase for the need to have that type of patience in the NHL today. Robin Lehner talking about that, getting it from Craig Anderson to not always drop to two knees, to make half butterfly saves, on the glove side, because you need to take away more up high glove, things like that, elements that are coming back. And when it comes to Dom, I gotta say, there was a method to that madness. One of my, some of my favorite interviews over the years, they were never as extended back then, but anytime I got a chance to, especially when he's with the Red Wings and he'd be in late for the massage and he'd sit down and talk a little bit of goaltending with you, my favorite of all time is the barrel roll, and how he talks specifically. And we have this on In Goal Mag, the free website still, where he talks about specific save situation. This is the reaction. This is why I did it this way. And funny, the paddle down stuff that we have this week with Tallis and Reimer, again, just using that blocker and that paddle down and forcing the guy out, and knowing that once he'd forced him out, his hands were extended so he couldn't raise it. And then by the time he was able to raise it, or if you dragged it around him, he'd roll over and lay that arm down. And now if that guy had enough time to pull it back and raise it, well, he'd roll over and bring the legs up. And he's like, what do you know? I am basically in a butterfly. The only difference is my arms are now my
inverted.
My arms are now my legs, and my legs are now my torso. And that was how Dom thought through that save. He was ahead of the curve on so many things. He thought the game. I can't remember. I know it's been written. I know I've written it. I think he has the sort of a grandmaster ability in chess. And when he played hockey, it was always one or two moves like chess ahead of regular mortals. And some of those saves, everybody will say he was unorthodox, but believe me, there was a method to the madness. And getting a chance to talk to him about it a couple times over the years was, frankly, the highlight so far of a 20-year career writing.
Well, and it was so unique that it threw players off because they hadn't seen it before, and they were encountering it. So they were flummoxed.
Well, and that goes
because of that difference.
And that goes back to what did we talk about it just earlier? Unpredictability, right? That need to be unpredictable, and how that's coming back into the game. So it all kind of ties in.
We were predictably long because we thought we'd be in and out of this with a couple of feature interviews and down our merry road. But instead, it's been a fun conversation. As this is the one consistent part about this is we kind of brainstorm without actually thinking we're brainstorming. We come up with some ideas for future articles or future interviews, and that comes from Semyon Varlamov and his mental approach, and Oleg Romashko and his idea that not every goaltender has to be the same. So it's been a lot of fun. For Kevin Woodley, David Hutchison, I'm Darren Millard. Not all roads lead to glory, but this one ran straight to Russia with love on In Goal Radio, the podcast.